Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of a new recurring series here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, WST Winners, where we have some fun with our pals at Coolbet, diving into the big stories on the betting scene for the big games and seasons coming up. Now, in August, we will begin a rollout of some extended and revamped NFL betting content. We'll have a weekly NFL pick show, which is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. But we'll get into it in August as well, looking ahead to the season, futures odds, talking some fantasy and more. Of course, right now we do have our weekly CFL betting content as a part of the CFL 110 show, which is here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. But we're going to get into a ton of hockey, a little bit of hoops as well, some of the big events in and around sports, and of course, on a daily basis, get back to NFL picks weekly here on the Winnipeg Sports Talk channel. Now, we will be setting up a separate podcast link for this, where all of the WST Winners content will be. It'll, of course, be here on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. But in the meantime, we're going to get into it today with the Blue Jays and Major League Baseball at the All-Star break. And, of course, tonight's Home Run Derby. Our friend Pat Gregoire will be a regular on the program. He and I will be diving into the British Open coming up on Wednesday, but today to kick off Jays, the Home Run Derby tonight, and look ahead to the Jays in the second half and some other of the futures in baseball. We bring in my pal, Jake Bolin Moss from Coolbet as well. Jakey, what's up?
What's going on, Huss? Happy to be back on the airwaves with you. Excited for the new content here, WST Winners, and yeah, excited to talk some baseball. I've been itching to get in on some Jays talk with you.
Oh, I know. I miss you. And it was basically the team got on a big heater the minute you left the country. I will say that maybe we spurred the entire turnaround by our attendance at the Dome for that game against the Phillies. They barely lost for the 3 weeks after that. But again, we are. And I will say, as great as things had been going, was a little bit of a stumble heading into the break. It kind of felt like with that series and that final loss against the White Sox, the team was very much looking forward to the break, and it sort of showed against the Athletics on the weekend in Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably no better time for a break for this team. They've been battling pretty hard. Some really nice win streaks put together, and yeah, a bit of a skid down the stretch, but still leading the division by 2 games right now. Unfortunately, this division, Huss, like, unbelievable what's happening. I don't know if you've been keeping up with it, but the Yankees remain kind of right where they are, 2 games back. But into the break, the Boston Red Sox go on a 10-game heater of their own. They're now only 3 back in the division lead. They're into the second wild card in the AL. And the Rays have actually fallen off. I think they're only 3 games above 500 now. But yeah, the Red Sox go 10 in a row. They're 8 games above 500. Then it's the Yankees. They're 9 games above 500. And then the Blue Jays, 11 games. Oh, no, sorry. I think they're 14 games above 500 headed into the All-Star break.
The Jays are, and listen, I don't want to get back onto the whole Michael Kay thing. He does have a little bit of a point, though. I couldn't help but notice this team's 14 games above 500 and has a plus 17 run differential. Just to put into perspective, the Yankees are a plus 111. And I think the Red Sox and the Rays are both at plus 61. That being said, none of it matters. You can win all the close games you want and lose a big one. And I mean, that'll be where it is. They are finding ways to win, which has been really fun for Jays fans. And I think there's a lot of people, yourself included, that had low expectations for the season. And listen, the numbers showed that. I mean, we spent a lot of time before first pitch saying, like, can the Jays be a 500 team? The win total for the year was 78.5. If you got on the over 78.5, you're feeling pretty good right now, Jake, because the win total now for the Jays over the course of the season is 89.5. And to get to 90 wins, you're talking about going 35-29 over the course of the second half of the season, which, to be honest, I think is very doable. But at the same time, there is part of me that thinks that, we're going to see the water sort of meet its level. And if you're on and over 78.5, the under 89.5 with an 11-game spot for a middle is pretty darn juicy, I got to say.
Yeah, listen, us, I'm not really one to hedge, especially when it's my team. So, I mean, if you're sitting on a 78 over 78.5 ticket right now, I think you're in a great spot. I probably wouldn't even touch the 89.5 at this point. You know, that there is the possibility that this team does fall off a little bit. They win a lot of close games. I think they lead the MLB in comeback wins. And like you said, they're finding ways to get it done. You know, it's exciting. Like the Rogers Center in the second half is going to be fun to be at. Where there were times in the last couple of years that hasn't been the case. I think that right now they're minus 556 to make the playoffs preseason. They were plus 300, 3-1. So a lot of good numbers if you jumped on this Blue Jays team. If you had belief, I think you and I were a little skeptical heading into the season, but they've proven us wrong here. And it hasn't just been from the long ball, Huss. That seemed to be, where they were the strongest in previous years, hitting the long ball, hitting the home runs, but they're finding ways to manufacture runs, bunt a guy over to third base, driving a run on a sac fly. Like, there's other ways to win baseball games. And the funniest thing for the Blue Jays is their biggest strength has actually been one of their bigger weaknesses has been the pitching, right? So, they're finding ways to score runs, manufacture runs, and win baseball games. And I think they're going to be in this race right down to the end. And I hope they don't prove me wrong.
Yeah, no, listen, I think that they're absolutely a playoff team. And, I did feel like the Jays were a nice buy low option at the beginning of the season. I mean, listen, it's an expanded playoff. We see mid teams get in all the time. And it just felt like, there was a lot more to this team than I think they were getting credit for, albeit they hadn't done anything really to show it in the last couple seasons. And it's been a lot of fun watching. I mean, listen, the only thing I did, I wasn't hitting the AL East futures or anything like that, but we are on the over 78.5, which is looking good right now. But again, there's still a lot of work to be done. And, hopefully they can get over this, to make the most of the break after kind of a bit of a skid going in, because they're going to need to. They got a very tough schedule coming out of the break. They got the Tigers, they got the Giants, they've got the Yankees, to name a few. So it is going to feel more like a real playoff push right out of the gate. But, when you look at the odds right now for the division, I got to say, with the lead that the Jays have, plus 175, if you believe in the team, is actually a pretty good number. Everyone just assumes the Yankees find a way to get this done. They're at minus 128 right now. I have serious reservations about the Yankees, to be honest, though, Jake. I mean, Aaron Judge can absolutely hit. Yeah, great. Well, we'll see what happens come playoff time. We certainly assume that they'll be there, and he's famously struggled in the postseason recently. But as much as I said, we could have the Jays just maybe come back a little bit and be a wild card team, I don't necessarily have the confidence that the Yankees are just going to wake up and be the team that everyone thought would roll through the AL East after the All-Star break right now. So, I mean, plus 175 for a team that is leading, has shown what they have, and I do think will be very active at the deadline as well. That's another thing to think about. This season means so much to this organization. I don't think that they're going to be shying away from making some impact moves to give them a better chance to win right now, because they need playoff baseball, they need playoff wins, and they need to move this thing forward right now, and it really feels like that's the time for Toronto.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you, Huss. I think it's going to be the tightest division down the stretch. But if you're looking for some value, I think you don't even look at the win total. You go straight to that division winner. Plus 175 right now is a real solid number for a team that is leading the division at the, quote unquote, halfway point of the season. You look preseason, they were 14-1 to win the division. At some point, late May, 13-1. June 9th, they were plus 1,000. At that point, they're 6 games over 500, 4 back. And then you go even a little further, like early July, they were plus 550 still. They were 49-38, first in the division, up a game. And as it stands today, plus 175. So even like earlier this month, 10 days ago, Huss, we're talking about this team was plus 550 to win the division in the lead. And then 10 days later, they're still holding on to that, actually in a better spot than they were 10 days ago. Plus 175 now. Yeah, I'm not sold on the Yankees. They've struggled with the pitching. And as great as Aaron Judge is, it's not a one player league. This isn't the NBA, right? Like it takes a lot more than one guy to be, the superstar that he is. He's only going to get up, every 3 innings, every 2 innings. There's no guarantee that he's going to get a hit every single time. I think a more well-rounded team, especially in your lineup, makes a huge, huge difference. So, the way the Jays are swinging it right now, they have guys that could be coming back. What's happening with Anthony Santander? He might be late August. Andres Jimenez, if he can get on the base, he's a threat to steal. Another guy, Dalton Varsho, another guy with some speed. Like, these are more guys that can help get the Jays some runs down the stretch. We're going to see where they all fit in. Everyone's pretty hot right now, so it's going to be hard to see who comes out of this lineup when some of those big boys get back. But if they can figure out some pitching woes, get their guys rested, the Gosmans, the Bassett's, the Barrios of the world, I think they're going to be in a good spot here. And I hate to believe, because you know how it is when I start to believe, things get a little scary. But I want to believe. I want to believe in this baseball club, and I think the biggest story has been Addison Barger. Like, he is maybe my favorite Blue Jay right now. He is.
He wasn't even on the opening day roster, Barger, but I will raise my hand for George Springer.
Yeah.
Like, George Springer was written off as a sunk cost by this team, and he's leading them in homers with 16 right now. He has just been phenomenal this year. I guess 53 RBIs on the season. I guess that's also tied for the team lead. An OPS at 853. So we've seen a few Springer dingers. The team's been raking, and pitching been pretty decent too, although certainly has a lead to go. Okay, as far as the AL goes, I mean, we just hit on the odds for the actual division. Coolbet has to make the playoffs odds, and you quoted that one at minus 556. Very likely to be a playoff team. Be incredible disappointment if they didn't, but plus 175 to win the division. The AL odds right now to win the pennant and play in the World Series, it is not the Yankees that are the favorite. And this probably shouldn't be a surprise. It's the Detroit Tigers, who have had a hell of a season right from the get-go. They're plus 272. The Yankees plus 365. The Astros, who are pushing 60 wins as well, at plus 380. And then you get down to that next tier, of which the Jays are at the top of at 8-1. Mariners and Tampa Bay Rays. Rays have really been struggling lately. They're 10-1. The suddenly red-hot Red Sox post Devers, 14-1. And then you got the Twins at 26, Guardians and Rangers at 35-1. What do you think about the Tigers as the favorite right now in the ALJ?
I mean, it makes sense. They're 21 games over 500 right now. They've been a wagon. They got a horse on the mound in Tarek Skubal. They're basically guaranteed a win one every 5 days. Like, this guy gets up there and just deals. And that's what, and this all started last year. You remember the Tigers went on a great run in the second half of the season. They got into the playoffs. Their ballpark was buzzing. Yeah, and they just had a lot going well for them, and they've kind of just turned that over into this season. So I think it makes sense. They went into the break on a bit of a skid, lost 4 in a row, but like most of these teams, it's a great time for a break right now. You get a lot of your guys feeling good off the All-Star break, come back. I think it makes sense. The Astros is an interesting one. The fact that they have higher odds than the Yankees, where everyone sits right now, is interesting. So there's probably some value there. And then if you're a homer, you want to back the home team, 8-1 on the Blue Jays, definitely not out of it. You look at it right now, Blue Jays are 14 games over 500. Like I said, the Tigers are 21. So got a bit of a gap to make up, about 7 games. But you find another couple win streaks like they did, going into the break. I don't think it's out of the question that the Blue Jays could be not only in the race for the AL East, but for the American League championships.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of things have to just go your way come playoff time. Because, again, this is, they're going to have 6 teams in there. You're going to have to win a couple series. You're going to get hot. And much like this season, where I think people were so down on the Blue Jays because of the way the last couple of years had happened. I think that might be the same way going into the playoffs, considering their miserable playoff record. But I got to tell you, when things turn around, they turn around quick. So, hey, you just got to get hot for a couple weeks. And I think this team so far, just in recent history, has shown that they're certainly capable of that. AL Cy Young, Scooble is the favorite at -200. Garrett Crochet, plus 250. And then a big gap before Jacob deGrom and Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown at 12-1. Max Fried 25-1. He had that great record to start off, but not quite in. It really does seem like it's Scoobles to win. As far as the National League goes, the NL, it just seems like it's the Dodgers. To be honest, the Major League Baseball league kind of feels like it's the Dodgers and then everybody else. And I mean, they're the huge favorite at plus 250 to win the World Series again. Plus 145 for the NL. And then, a gap. The Phillies looking really good at plus 450. The Mets are 6-1. And then you've got these two teams from the Central. I'll get into one in a minute, but the Cubs at plus 650. And the suddenly hot Milwaukee Brewers back at 12-1. And listen, it's hard to bet against the Dodgers right now. I'm pretty excited about what Milwaukee's doing, but I think if anything, that's going to probably be maybe an NL Central bet as opposed to thinking they can run through the playoffs and beat that stacked Dodger team. But when you look at the NL futures, as far as the overall or the divisions, anything that stands out to you, Jake, as we get into the second half post the All-Star game on tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely down to get on board with you on the Brewers at 12-1.
Yes.
I think that's a great number. They're right in the race for their division. I think winning the division is probably ideal if you are backing that team right now. So we'll have to see, kind of how them and the Cubs compete down the stretch. But, we've kind of seen the Cubs in previous years kind of lose it late, coming down the stretch when you need to be playing your best baseball. We've seen them kind of fall off. So, I know it's a new regime, a new team. They brought some guys in this year and they've been playing good baseball, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Brewers come away, win that division, and then set themselves up in a good spot in the National League. I don't know. The one thing with the Dodgers is as good as they are and as stacked as they are, they haven't been record-wise, they're not blowing teams out of the water. I think they're 19 games above 500, which is obviously great, but they're not leading the MLB by a substantial number. By
3-7 in their last 10. I mean, they sort of skidded going into the break,
right? This team is very beatable, and it's baseball at the end of the day. It's really the one league where you could really stack a roster, and if things aren't going well for your hitters and things aren't happening, day to day or week to week, you can find these little ruts. So if the Dodgers are struggling into the playoffs or they struggle to start the playoffs, don't be surprised if a team like the Padres or, the Mets can knock them off. We've seen it happen before in the past. I know the Dodgers are coming off a World Series win, but I don't think there's any guarantees in Major League Baseball. And that's why I think you got to look down the board for some value when you're looking at these odds.
Well, and listen, for me, that team is the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, they can hit, and they now have the leader for the NL Rookie of the Year, Jacob Misiorowski, who is playing in the All-Star game tomorrow with only 5 games on his Major League resume. No one has ever got to the All-Star game quicker. And in a lot of ways, it seems like he's seeming sort of like Skeens 2.0. 6.7. It's 103 on the gun. You add a player like that into your lineup, and it can really change a lot of things about a team. And, Milwaukee's one of these smaller market teams that doesn't get the attention that the Mets and the Cubs do, but they are no joke right now. Just looking at the division odds right now, as opposed to maybe a sprinkle on them to win the NL at 12-1 or the World Series at 26-1 is worth it. They're only 1 game back of the Cubs, though, right now. And it's plus 235 for Milwaukee. Cubs minus 303. This is a 2-horse race right now. And, you add in what Misiorowski's doing. this is a team that absolutely can challenge the Cubs. And I think there's some nice value I'll be getting on the Milwaukee Brewers to win the NL Central. And as we mentioned, 12-1 for the National League and 28-1 for the World Series overall. Any other futures that you wanted to touch on before we start diving into the All-Star break? I mean, this is the time to get in your midseason bets. You've got until play resumes on Thursday. But anything else that you were jumping on, whether it be league leaders or players or win totals?
Yeah, I want to go over to the league leaders tab quickly. Most home runs, I do think it's a 2-horse race right now between Judge and Raleigh. Can Cal Raleigh keep up the pace? Is Judge going to pull away? We'll see. That one I'm probably staying away from. But the strikeout numbers are what's interesting to me right now. I mean, it's a 3-horse race, and the 3 guys who are in it are all very much in it. So let me pull this up here quickly. You look at the strikeout per 9 numbers, Skubal and Wheeler have better strikeout per 9 numbers than Garrett Crochet right now. He's only leading by like 6 or 7 strikeouts. That's really just one good start versus one bad start. And these guys are going to be right back in this league leaders race. So I think Crochet's a little overvalued right now, in my opinion. And I think you could go either way with Skubal or Wheeler. If you think one of them beats them out, you could really play them both if you wanted to. A $10 bet on each of those guys. You put in $20, you got a $30 return, $35 return if one of those 2 guys wins. Obviously, if Crochet wins, you're down 20, but I think a spot like that, I don't think anyone else is catching those 3 guys. So I think take some value. Either pick one of them that you really like in Skubal or Wheeler, or sprinkle a little bit on both. And I think you'd be in a great spot coming down the stretch here.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about Skubal and Wheeler, they're both going to be pitching high leverage big games as we get closer to the playoffs. And I know they've been yanked earlier on. I think they might be given a little bit of more rope by the managers in key games to stay in games a little bit more. I'm not sure that'll be the case for the Red Sox, although with the way they played as of late, maybe they'll be in those similar situations. It's Crochet will be there. I'm sort of with you too. I'm a Skubal stan. I'll ride with him at 3-1 right now. But I think that is a great point. I mean, looking at either Skubal or Wheeler or doing both, knowing that, you'll be returning minimum of 3-1 on a bet, would be a good way to sort of maybe fade Garrett Crochet, who's only got a 6 strikeout lead right now. All right, let's get to tonight. It is the Major League Baseball Home Run Derby, which is always fun. And it's a very, very fun event to bet on, especially since they've changed the rules and we've got a little bit more of a standard. We know how this thing works. Have been changing each and every year. Here is the lineup for tonight's Home Run Derby, along with their odds to win over at Coolbet.com. The Big Dumper, Cal Raleigh. What an unbelievable nickname. What a dude. He is the favorite at 3-1. Now, he has been leading the league all year, and I believe he's just 1 behind Barry Bonds at the All-Star break. So putting together potentially a really historic season right now with the bombs that he's put forth. Second on the odds is O'Neal Cruz from the Pirates, who's only got 16 bombs. What's interesting about Cruz, though, is that his we'll get to some of these exit velocity numbers, but he crushes everyone. And that, I think, is why people think that for something like this, where it's meatballs as opposed to major league pitching, he could be the guy that does the most damage. James Wood from the Nats was plus 450. That's come down in the last half hour as we do this right now to 4-1. But at the same time, Matt Olson's gone up from plus 750 to plus 850. 9-1 on Brent Buxton and Brent Rooker. Junior Caminero at 14-1, and then the last added player, Jazz Chisholm, 14-1. I think Cal Raleigh is going to get a ton of support in this one, just based on the season that he's had. People love the nickname, love the guy. But as we've seen before in the Derby, there's always value, and it often comes from lower down on the board. Jake, what intrigues you about the odds board when it comes to tonight's Home Run Derby and where you're throwing a nickel or two?
Yeah, listen, Raleigh, I get why people would get behind him. He's hit a ton of home runs this season. My concern with Raleigh is, how seriously is he taking an event like this with his team very much in the AL playoff race? Like, you see a lot of guys come into the break red hot. They go do the derby and they come out and their swing's not the same because they just the way a derby swing is compared to, your everyday major league swing. We've seen it happen with Vladdy. Vladdy, I think one year had 90 plus home runs in a round, and then he came out of the break and he just didn't look like the same player. So I do wonder like how reserved he's going to be, and that's why my eyes moved down just a touch to O'Neill Cruz and James Wood. Both these guys play for teams that are very much not in playoff races.
This is their World Series tonight.
This is it, right? Like that's what I'm thinking, Huss. Like. So, you could take either one of those guys plus 315, plus 400, but I moved a little bit further down, Huss. Name the finalists. James Wood versus O'Neill Cruz at 11-1. I don't hate that one bit. I think these are two guys. James Wood's a young guy, 22 years old. I think he's going to want to put on a show. O'Neill Cruz, he's 26. We talked about the exit velocity numbers. I think he's 5 mile per hour max exit velocity better than everyone else. You can go to the exit velocity. The player with the highest exit velocity home run, he's the favorite by far. He's even money right now over all 8 guys. So, I think that's going to help.
Quickly on that, this is so nuts. So this is there's a market player with the highest exit velocity home run, and as you mentioned, Cruz is plus 100.
Yeah,
Cal Raleigh, the MLB leader, is 10-1. So it shows that there's a different way a lot of these guys do it. That being said, James Wood plus 325 right behind Cruz. I will say this. I think there's better value on Wood maybe than Cruz, not necessarily in this market right now.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he's just behind it. But these young players that kind of come in knowing that this is the highlight of their season, no one's holding them back for anything, are great. I mean, Rooker at 9-1 is another guy that, I kind of think, a lot of these young players come in and it's a pretty nice opportunity. But is there an advantage for veteran players that have been around a little bit more? Matt Olson of the Braves, Byron Buxton right in the middle. It's sort of that plus 850, plus 900. We've seen a bunch of guys going, or, Jess Chisholm coming in and I will tell this story. I got together with guys for a derby party and we did a draft and everyone got a player. And it was just 1 through 8. And lo and behold, I got the 8th pick and I was stuck with Cespedes. Who won? Cespedes. There is an element of anything can happen here. And it is an amount of guys that aren't necessarily the guys that are hitting at 600 feet, but just getting in a groove. And a guy like Jess Chisholm, I think, actually could definitely get hot, even as the longest number on the board.
Yeah, listen, Haas, like I said, like, you don't know who's coming into this derby thinking, how seriously these guys are taking. Remember Pete Alonso used to come in and it was his World Series every single season. He's like, I want to be the derby guy. And that's like, okay, Pete, like you're a bit of a hardo, but fair enough. So that's the one thing about the derby, whereas you could take a guy like, let's do Raleigh, for instance, because he's the biggest favorite on the board. And he could come out and he could just be, swinging a bit and he could go up against a guy like, Junior Caminero, who's a younger guy, plays for the Rays. They're going to be in the race, but, he might want to put on a bit more of a show. He might take him out, early in the event. So we've seen it happen before in the past. And I totally hear you. That's why I lean towards the younger guys. Like as much as Matt Olson, Byron Buxton, those are big names in the sport. I don't know if 2 31-year-old guys are really getting up for the derby like a 22-year-old guy like James Wood is. So, I think the more I talk about it, the more I'm slowly talking myself into Wood at 4-1 to win the derby. And I do love that 11-1 number on him and Cruz in the
I'm staring at 2. I think I'm going to ride with you on this one and jump on the young guys, but 11-1 Wood versus O'Neill Cruz. And then, I worry about Raleigh and what this does to the rest of his season because he's just been So incredible. I
I
mean,
know you Huss, you'd hate for him to change the way he's swinging the bat right now. Like, if I'm the Seattle Mariners or Seattle's Mariners fans for that instance, I don't even want Cal Raleigh in this derby tonight.
no way. No, like it's fun to watch your guy mash and it'll be great tonight, but this is a team that has playoff aspirations. And I would love to know, what 38 or 39 right now. I would love to know what the total for him is, home runs in the season, because I got to admit, just based on history, I would probably be taking the under on second half home runs after a start like this, and the fact that he is participating in the Derby, because we know what that's done to some pretty big sluggers in the past.
Well, listen, Huss, for you, I'll do a little bit of research. I'll talk to our guys. Maybe we can get up a couple home run totals similar to the win totals for the teams. Maybe we get up a Judge, we get up a Raleigh. We can see what we can do and give you the opportunity to jump on an under there.
That would be fun. So again, for tonight, all the players, you can book their longest home run. There's the total home runs by the winner. The over-under is 53.5. That would be winning 3 rounds. You've got the distance in feet of the longest home run. Most home runs by any player in round 1, over or under 24.5. That's often when the biggest totals are achieved. And again, it'll be the top 4 guys that'll make it through, and they'll go head to head, and we'll see who it is. But we're thinking 11-1, Wood and O'Neill Cruz in the final. And listen, Wood right now 4-1, Cruz plus 315, and the big dumper Cal Raleigh, the favorite, at 3-1. Of course, the Derby numbers will be up right until the festivities get going tonight. Tomorrow is the All-Star game. But the MLB futures that we've been getting at, that you want to check out at Coolbet right now, up throughout the next 3 days, up until everything resumes on Thursday. And Jake, great way to kick off our new WST Winners content with you, along with our presenting partner at Coolbet, Patty and I. Pat couldn't be here today because he's in the lab getting ready for the Open Championship. And tell you what, the golf picks from us as a group, but especially from Mr. Gregoire, have been so hot. You know that he wants to come in and finish strong. Very much looking forward to talking about the Open Championship on our next edition of WST Winners, when we dive into the Open Championship on Wednesday. And Pat's going to be ready for that.
Yeah, it's crazy to think we're coming up on the final major of the golf season here. Like it felt like out of nowhere we blink it, and it's the Open Championship week. So yeah, Patty's going to be ready to go on that. And I'm sure he's going to be fired up, especially that he couldn't get on today. I know he's going to be fired up to talk a little golf.
Oh yeah, he'll be coming in hot, and all of us will be coming in hot. Listen, I know I don't want summer to end. We all love it right now. The weather's great, but I will point out to all of you and remind you to subscribe to the new podcast feed. We'll let you know about that, and make a point of joining us weekly, because the festivities are going to be ramped up a little bit this year with the NFL pick segment. I know Remo and Connor are fired up. They're going to be involved in a bunch of hockey content. I'm sure we'll be getting Connor to pop in, which was picks during NFL season as well. So the gang is growing, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. I'm ready to just start talking about the division odds and, the futures right now. We will get into that in August as training camps get going closer to all of your fantasy drafts. And, of course, NFL kickoff at the beginning of September.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to let you end summer early here, Huss. I still like some warm weather here, sitting by the lake or by the pool. And but football will be here soon enough. It will be talking college. We'll be talking NFL. I can't wait.
I had that moment yesterday afternoon. I'd actually popped by Southwood to do some stuff for the RBC qualifier, or the scramble, I should say, of which Coolbet's a sponsor for, and was driving around. It was like 3:00 in the afternoon. I said, how many Sundays until we're just getting ready for the late kickoff right now?
Yeah.
And I got fired up. But hey, in the meantime, it's been a lot of fun watching this Blue Jays team right now. They will get a well-deserved few days off for the All-Star break. We've got the Derby tonight, the All-Star game tomorrow, all the mid-season All-Star break. Futures are up at Coolbet. And Wednesday, Patty and I will dive into the Open Championship. And of course, tomorrow we'll have all of our picks for CFL Week 8 now, I guess.
7, I think.
7. Yeah, and the Bombers have had 2 buys. Make it make sense. CFL 110 tomorrow right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And of course, the main show daily at 1 p.m. Give Jake a follow if you haven't already at Jake Bolin Moss, as well as at Coolbet Canada. I'm sure you'll see a bunch of clips and content from these segments up on Coolbet as well. Let you know where to find it. And in the meantime, enjoy the Derby tonight. And we'll see you a little later on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And of course, the next edition of WST Winners Wednesday, Pat and I with our picks for the British Open. Have a great one, everyone. And we'll see you at our next edition of WST Winners. And of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, 1 p.m. Central on YouTube, Monday to Friday.